The doctors are actually saying that archery is therapy for autistic kids. And there was an archery. I don't know if they're still around. There was an archery place in East Toronto that actually was doing this. They would have autistic adults and youths do archery, and I saw it in spades because the confidence, the ability to focus, their concentration, it was unimaginable in 6 months.
You're listening to the Letdown Podcast.
It's like buck fever.
One shot at a time.
That's a big buck.
I want to introduce Mark Dacuna, the interim president for Archery Ontario. Welcome to the show, Mark.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, so just we'll just get into talking a little bit about you first, so people get to know you as a person and what you do right now in archery. I know currently, aside from being the interim president at Archery Ontario, are you still directing the coaches at Archers of Caledon?
Yes, I am. I'm still head coach there, and vice president of the club. My term there is up in May, so we'll see where we're at by then.
What do you love about working with developing archers?
Well, believe it or not, I didn't actually start out wanting to be a coach when I came up to Caledon. I came up to get good enough to hunt with my compound bow, and they kind of dragged me in to say, can you help out with the coaching, the Saturday morning classes, and that's where I started helping out. And I worked well with the younger kids, so they would always give me the 12-year-olds and the 13-year-olds and the 14-year-olds. So I started to like working with youths and adults and seniors, even mostly because they get a lot of joy out of archery in the beginner stage. As we get more sophisticated and better, we tend to lose that joy, and so sometimes it's helping them rediscover the joy of archery. And that's what I love most about it is you get a new person in, and some of them, sometimes they've had some experience and sometimes they've got no experience, so you don't have to undo the bad habits. So yeah, I like discovering a new person each time, what their skills are, and helping them get better.
That's awesome. So did you say you went there, I guess, to practice your bow hunting? Are you a bow hunter?
Yes, I am. I had an interesting childhood, because the reason that I got into archery is that at 6 years old, we lived in Kenya, in East Africa. And when I was 6 years old, we moved to a town that had two large features, I guess. One was a volcano, an extinct volcano, with the largest crater in the world. And we lived on the slope. It was about 5 blocks away to hike to the top of the peak of the volcano and look down. And you really thought you were up in the clouds at that point. And the other redeeming feature it had was there were 2 million flamingos in this soda lake at the bottom of the town, at the bottom of the volcano. And so we spent a lot of time at both places. But as I used to hike up with my 9-year-old brother, just like you find pebbles on the side of the road, I would find these flint arrowheads from 60,000 years ago.
Wow.
And when you're 6 years old, you collect them. They look sharp, they're cool. And then you get a whole bowl of them. And what do? Well, you make arrows at 6 years old. You got nothing else to do. So that's what happened. I made arrows before I got into archery. And so I found some bamboo and figured out how to cut a notch and tie it on. And make a bow out of string and a stick. I think I used twine on the first one, and then got better. Encyclopedia Britannica was the internet back then, and did some research and figured out how to tie the arrowhead onto the wooden arrows and get some feathers on there from doves and pigeons. And I got pretty good at 7, 8 years old. I could take out doves, pigeons, rabbits, and we don't call it hunting, or you didn't call it hunting back then. You kind of went on safari, and this is what you did. And at that time, and even probably today, twine and sticks and stones are everywhere. So that was the start of my archery. And then I gave it up when I came to Canada. So when I went back to Kenya in 2005, I was working in Dubai with some Canadians, and they were in their 20s, and they wanted to go on safari. And I said, okay, let's go. And we went back, and I did 2 safaris. I realized I really missed the bush, the woods. And I said, when I come back to Canada, I'm going to get my hunting license and my firearms license and all of that. And while I was doing that, the ranger said to me, if you can shoot a bow and you bow hunt, the season is longer. You get a longer window, and it's
Okay,
more
wow.
challenging. And so that convinced me to get a bow, and I came up to Caledon. And the rest is this history, as they say, it was 20 years ago.
Wow.
So that's how I got into it.
So you've come a long way with bow technology, let's say, from a stick and string
Yeah.
to
Stick and string with
The
stone
scary
arrows.
part is that I looked at it I think I looked at it 2-3 years ago, and we got we got pretty inventive back then because we were trying to figure out what's the strongest thing to tie the arrowhead onto the arrow, and I went through a whole bunch of things until I happened upon sinew, and
okay.
we happened to. This is the other thing that got me in trouble on the hunting course, is that I've skinned a lot of animals in my day because my father was a provincial accountant, so he would go away on a Monday, come back on a Friday, and he'd be away for 5 days. And tradition in that part of the world is when you travel a long distance and help people, they give you a gift. So he would come back with a goat or a sheep. One day it was a calf in his Land Rover, and we would keep it around for a few weeks, and then skin it. And so I got into sinew and treating it, drying it, pounding it, and damn, was that strong. It is as strong. You do it right, it's as strong as steel. And so that ended up becoming the something that we used for the arrowheads. And then for the string, I tried all sorts of stuff: old tennis rackets, old nylon guitar strings, badminton rackets, until we found the right mix. And
So what?
I
Sorry.
still think about those days. It was simpler, and the bows were a whole lot cheaper.
That's for sure.
So a little off topic. Sorry. What was the best string mixture? Like in your research and development, what was the best mixture for string for a bow?
It was probably the badminton racket strings because they were thinner, so they were more flexible, and we were looking for something that wouldn't break. So one of the I guess oddities of a stick bow, when you take a long stick and you bend it and you put the pressure on it, is that that string stretches. Today we have bow squares and we measure the brace height and all of that, but when you're dealing with a stick bow, you literally used to pick it up, pull it, and of course it had stretched, and then you'd push down on the top and do another wind around the top with your string, and then you test it again, and you go, okay, that's it.
Nice.
And you didn't have a lot of challenges with string stretching, but that was 40 years ago and more.
Yeah, the things you do without the internet, right?
Yeah.
I know.
That would be so cool just to do once. Like just make your own bow.
Oh, I did that for one of the neighbor's kids the other day, a couple of years ago.
That's cool.
And in fact, I took it into Caledon to show, because on week 4 of the lessons we do other bows, and we show Japanese bows and long bows and the ones that you don't normally see, horse bows and stuff like that. And I took this in, and everybody freaked out that I built this thing, and they bet me it wouldn't shoot from 15 meters, and I shot it from 15 meters. I think I shot it from 18. It might have broken, but yeah. And I did rebuild. I think about 3 years ago, I did rebuild the arrows, because now you can get Port Orford cedar. I got the arrows. I put the notch in. I got broadheads. These were marble, I think, or granite and broadheads that were shaped, and I got artificial sinew, would you believe? And
Okay,
it did a pretty good
yeah.
job. It did a pretty good job. Reminded me of those. I haven't finished that, but
Yeah, I've used artificial sinew. I build or not build. I make things out of leather, and I found to sew it, artificial sinew was really it was the strongest stuff that you get in there. That your knife sheaths and pouches and stuff don't fall apart as easily with that stuff. So
I didn't know you made things out of leather.
I do make things out of leather. Yeah,
You got to make me a sheath for my knife.
give me the knife and
There you go.
I'll do it.
Awesome.
It won't. It doesn't look great, but I do because I do a lot of. I used to do a lot of First Nations crafts, so I do like fringe on it, all that kind of thing on it. So like I want to build. I want to make a. And sorry, I don't know why I started dominating the conversation here. Apologize, but I want to make like a leather bag for a couple of my rifles. So And eventually my hunting bow, I'd like to have it in a nice homemade case. I just got to find or kill something big enough to get enough leather so I can make it. So, but anyways, I digress. So it's pretty funny. So you went from, so you're a bow hunter. You go into Archery Ontario because you want to start shooting your bow. You're like, I want to get better with this bow hunting thing with this, and with your modern bow, and you get roped into coaching kids. But let's just go back to bow hunting. What do you think bow hunting gives you that? I don't know how much target competition you do, Mark, but what does bow hunting give you that target doesn't?
So I think the big I guess pleasure I get out of it is spending time in the woods, the quietness, the nature. And usually you're in the woods or you're out on a mountain or hill or whatever. And, there's solitude, there's quiet and peace, which is lovable. There's nature, there's trees, and that's what I like. I spent a lot of time in the smallest towns and villages in Kenya growing up. One of the disadvantages, or maybe it's advantages now, of working for the government is that my father got moved every year or two. So you learn pretty fast how to settle into a place, find new friends, make new friends, figure out how to spend your time, and you know that you're carrying what you know and you've learned to different places. So that's what I kind of liked about bow hunting, and you got to be ready to spend time by yourself. You got to spend a lot more time not doing anything because you're waiting. So if you're an impatient person, that's going to be tough, right? So I like all of that stuff, and much more over targets where you stand in one place. I like the fact that you're shooting. Even if you're doing 3D or field, you're shooting something different. So that's my perspective.
Awesome. And so getting back to the coaching, what do you love about coaching at Archers of Caledon?
Now, I mean, I think the progression of how to get archers from a beginner situation to competitive shooting or to bow hunting is what I love about that. I do a little bit, I would say a little bit of um, coaching of bow hunters, and it's very different. I had one gentleman come to me and say, I've hunted and I've hunted with rifle, and I've got about 8 weeks. I want to go hunt on a hunt, and I think he was going to Utah for elk. And he said, I want to hunt the elk with a bow. He says, I've hunted elk with rifle, and he wanted to hunt with a bow. And that again, it challenges you as a bow hunter. It challenges you as a coach to go and figure out, okay, if you're going to go after this animal, what do you need to change in your setup? Where are you? And he was comfortable with the deer at 30 yards. He's got 100 grain points on his arrows, and we had to figure out, okay, with elk, you're going to be at 60 yards, and the shot, and you're going to be doing a lot of walking, and that shot is going to be at the end of the day maybe, and you're going to be tired. And so it's okay, run around the range outdoors 2 times, get the heart rate up, and then come and take the shot, right? And you can't just take the shot standing. You got to take it kneeling, sitting, peeking around the bush, hunting conditions, as it were. And so he was a tall fellow, very strong, retired. And I still have the picture. It's one of my bittersweet moments because he sent me this picture where he got his elk, and he says, "Mark, I couldn't have done it without you."
Oh, that's
right?
awesome.
And it's like, so yeah, so that's occasionally happens, and more often I get people to say, "Hey, my buddies are going out hunting in 3 weeks, and I just bought a bow. Can you get me up to speed?" I usually have to tell them no, but
Buy a crossbow.
occasionally they surprise
That's what I
me.
always tell them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fair enough.
occasionally they surprise me. Yeah, so on the coaching side, it's really more figuring out how to build an athlete's pathway and get them from beginner to competitive target archer or competitive 3D or field archer more quickly than we've ever done before. And so, as I progressed as a coach and as I watch others who've been mentors, it's using techniques to build strength, to build accuracy, that help them get there faster. So we have an advanced class now that we use high performance techniques, and compared to where they were 2 years ago, wow, it's fascinating. And I think we're also trying to figure out from a coaching perspective how to deal with larger groups, because especially among the youth, like the youth, the competitive youth membership at Archery Ontario grew by 56% last year. And if I look at club level youth participation, it's up by 100%. Because not everybody becomes a competitive archer. We don't have the coaches, and we certainly will not have the tournament footprints and capacity that these people would need if they're going to, satisfy their craving to compete. So we're
Right.
already seeing, I think, both the tournaments, indoor tournaments, regionals and provincials we're sold out.
Yeah.
And I'm literally at the point of going to Archery Canada and Archery Ontario and saying, we need to add another day to shoot this particular tournament
Yeah.
because the demand is there, and that hasn't happened
Yeah.
in 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
So, coaching is as much as we do it, we're outnumbered.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, yeah, so the one I have a couple of questions just from from like a club president sort of. I think that's the one thing our club struggles with is bringing in younger folks. And right now we are working with Stephanie Barrett to start training beginners. We've got to buy some targets. Our club's been a 3D club since its inception. We tried to change that over a little bit with adding a target course. 70 meter. We were able to get 70 meters on the property, and Stephanie kind of has some strategies to do it. Like, what have you found to be the best strategies to get the young folks into it?
So, during the pandemic, so I took over as head coach just before the pandemic, and I'm a product strategy technology guy by trade. I'm an engineer, but I ended up being a product strategist and product manager, where companies, international large companies, bring me in to take a look at their product line and say, okay, well, what should we do? We got way too many products. How do we figure out which ones are the ones that we should keep, kind of thing. And so I took stock of, the various lessons that we had and at Caledon, and I did some analysis, and it was limited analysis, but it was taking us 11 emails to schedule a person for the coach, just a beginner lesson. I want a beginner lesson, and so I looked at that and I was like, well, this is not very efficient, and there's so much delay when you send 11 emails. It's several days between somebody asking and somebody getting what they want, and it's very unsatisfying. And so we changed the model of that one, and it literally became, I will be there. So I said, we'll start with just me. And I said, we'll book pre-scheduled slots. Sunday afternoon at 2:00, I will be there, and 2 people can sign up for it. And if nobody's there, well, I'm out shooting on the practice range, because we were outdoors at that point in time. And that experiment, as it were, I think the first week, nobody showed up. And then the second week, one person showed up. And they were so fascinated because it was outdoors. They were shooting outdoors. They didn't believe they could have ever shot outdoors, but because of the pandemic, there was no choice. Yeah, we lost a few arrows for sure. But the next week I had 4, and it snowballed. People were coming back for this, right?
Wow.
And it is still our most popular lesson. We run it every Sunday that we don't have a tournament. It is booked months in advance. And if I were doing it outdoors, I would do it that way. I would make it very easy. It's just pre-scheduled slots. You find some, beginner coaches. You have to set up some context for them, and you just do pre-booked slots. And from spring to fall, it'll work, and it gets them. You provide the equipment so that they don't have to worry about anything. They go up and shoot and get coached, and it's a very popular format. So we called it the Archery Experience, and it works great. We don't do it outdoors anymore, but I mean, it works outdoors. It works outdoors.
I may steal that idea.
That's
actually a really good idea.
Yeah. And it worked. We did it specifically on recurve because that was where we wanted to start. But Now we have compound bows in the equipment closet. Beginner bows, they would have to be fitted to the archer, but that's a 15-minute setup. So yeah, I would do that. There's certainly enough interest among people to try it. And really, once they try
Okay.
it, as I tell them, you're going to get addicted, and then we got problems. Because then we have to equip
Well, they've
you,
got
and we have
problems.
to give you a place.
Expensive problems.
It's definitely
Yeah.
expensive problems.
So the minute you do that, you they want to come back, and then you have to have the next part ready. So at least in the case of Archery Ontario, we had the beginner class indoors. We had the beginner class. We ran them outdoors during the pandemic, and we restricted them, I think, to 5 or 6 people. But you got to have that part ready, because that will be the next step. Is they need to come once a week for a class to get better with their own equipment, and then from there, then you can start to do other things. For example, we built this. I'll show it to you next time I see you. We built this athlete pathway that shows how you grow as an athlete. First, you take archery experience, right? And then you go and take a beginner group class, a beginner 1 we had, and then you take a level 2 class. And then if you feel like you want to go outdoors and shoot outdoors, there's an intro to outdoors that we're actually starting to share that with some of the other clubs, because the intro to outdoors class takes you through how to shoot outdoors. Because believe it or not, a lot of people have never been outdoors. They don't know what to expect. You got to teach them about sun and rain and insects, and get them to bring water and sunglasses and all of that stuff. And then at the end of that, you shoot an outdoor tournament. It's included in the class. And so if we can get this quote franchised, or other clubs in on this, they will do the intro outdoors locally, and then they will come to Caledon and shoot the tournament, right? And that's a win-win situation for everybody. So that's something that I think as a community, in order to deal with the volume of archers and the growth among young archers and beginner archers, these are good things to do. And we need to do more of it as a community. We need to share our ideas and at some point take advantage of places that have facilities, right? So if we have, a 3D shoot that we need to do, I'm coming to your place, because once I get my folks trained, they're coming over to your place.
Yeah.
And we need to do that. That's really the goal of this community is to get more people into it.
Yeah, I like all those ideas. It's we'd definitely be willing participants there. I've got I'm a beginner coach. Valerie's a beginner coach, so we have coaches on, and we have a couple other coaches on staff as well. So we'd be really interested in taking that on. That sounds like a lot of fun. Actually, I may steal your idea with the Sunday slots, because hey, it gets me out there shooting anyways, right? If nobody shows up, I get to at least have an excuse that I'm out there shooting. So, and I know
we selected that because we selected that time frame because we looked at range usage, which we could do rather well during the pandemic, because everybody had to pre-book to use the range or use the facility, right? So we had pre-booked. So we could see that, Sunday afternoons by 1:00, the ranges were dead. Everybody was gone, because people would come in the morning on Sunday, shoot, and by 12 they'd be gone. And so this was range time that was sitting there waiting to be used. So yeah, that's something that is useful to do and works.
Awesome.
We are hoping that we can get, as we get more 3D and field archers, because they're starting to emerge and grow. Small groups of archers is a good thing to do, because you can start to build a social group. And Tom is coming on Sunday afternoon. We're going to meet here, and we're going to have this and go out. It's great to have company. You don't want to go out necessarily on your own. A couple of people, 4 people, 6 people. That works really well as well, especially if they're members or if they're a group of people who know each other. And so we have a couple of groups of those going on. So Sunday afternoon, the Sunday afternoon 4:00 crowd is a group that does that.
Very cool. Very cool. So given all the stuff you're doing at the club, what the heck influenced you to start to take on the province? You're doing great at a club level.
So I think the biggest conclusion I came to with all of the coaching and work at Archery Ontario and seeing what happens with tournaments is I ended up again, this one I fell backwards into because, as I said, I stay away from tournaments. That was my day off. But in order to find out just how difficult it was to be a judge, I did become a local club judge and then had to judge at a few tournaments. And I did the same thing with the provincial judge, target judge, to see how difficult it was and get there. So I was knowledgeable, and then I ended up being voluntold to organize the Canada Cup East. I really didn't choose to do that. And in retrospect, I probably should have run like hell. But, I grew up in Africa. So when somebody says, well, this is going to be a disaster, I just perk up and I do it. Right. So I got told, oh my God, it was like, I tell people it was like organizing the first Canada Cup was like organizing a wedding. I had fathers-in-laws and mothers-in-laws peeking over my shoulder to see what I was doing and telling me what to do, even though I knew what I was doing, right? Because I've organized stuff before, and it turned out okay. It was not a disaster, and it wasn't parking chaos that people had predicted and all that stuff. So I did that, and I found out just wow, this is just how hard it is to organize a tournament, and just how badly the need is for tournaments. And I kind of came to the conclusion, probably about a year or 2 years ago, that in order to do what I wanted to do for coaching and for judging and for athletes, we needed to double the tournament capacity, like double, not increase, double the tournament capacity at Caledon. And so that's kind of what I started to say. Okay, let's see what we need to do this, right? Because we got this growing bunch of community of youth archers who want to be competitive. We don't have enough spots. We're going to have to double. So what would it take to double? And I realized pretty soon that even if a club level could double, the bottleneck was really at Archery Ontario, because they have the mandate and responsibility to develop coaches and judges and all of that, and to get grant money from the government, and they needed help. So just to kind of put this in context, for the first Canada Cup East, when I looked at where we get funding from, and I was told, oh yeah, you can get funding from the Ministry of Sport. I think it's the Sport Tourism Grant. So it's a national tournament. You can get a Sport Tourism Grant. But when I looked into that, in 185 events that they'd sponsored and 17 years of history, on the Ministry of the Sport Tourism Grant, Ontario, had not given a dollar to archery in 17 years and 185 events. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try this. I put my heads together and said, okay, I'm going to spend 8 days of my life writing this application, which we did, and we got about $8,500 worth of money.
Nice,
but we did get the first grant, so that was good, right? It was a start. And this year, this is the first year I think in Ontario's history we got 2 applications in there, because we got one for the Nationals and one for Canada Cup East in Ottawa. So if we get both of those, it will be a rewarding year, because we broke through the barrier there.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to do these grants. We need to get money. And when I looked at that, I said, you know what, the grant position, which is the vice president of administration, is what I said, to Archery Ontario. Look, I can help you with that. And then there was a number of board moves, and some people left and shuffled and all that. And so I became VP of administration, I think, of February of last year, and learned the business of Archery Ontario, which is very different than the business of running a club. And so that's kind of what happened, is why I joined them, is because I want to increase the tournament capacity and help them with grant funding, and help them with the development of coaches and officials. And that's kind of where we started. And then the only reason that I became interim president is nobody else wanted to do it. So I managed to convince Kelly to come and help.
I know that feeling.
And I would help her, and nobody really wanted to be president, not even the past presidents. And,
I know that feeling.
There's probably good reasons for that, but let's see where we go. It's my mandate is until the September-October timeframe this year, and if they elect me, well, then I'll be there for another couple of years. If not, then I'll continue to help them where they need it, in some other role, or I'll come help you.
Yeah, we could use some help. for
Mhm.
some definitely for programming. We could definitely use. I know Valerie actually is doing a pretty good job at programming, but she's always open to good ideas. So yeah, like I said, we're definitely going to use that Sunday idea. So we're talking about bottlenecks. The bottleneck of tournament space basically is one of the bottlenecks. The other bottleneck being coaching. And I've kind of experienced that bottleneck myself, and just you get your beginners coach, and then you want to do some intermediate stuff, and then there's nowhere to go for that. So, and I mean, it's not it's not an attack on anybody or anything like that. It's just I'm interested in and also developing athletes, and like we run our 3D program at Royal City Bowman, where we have a team of about 20. 15 to 20 3D archers. Valerie leads the coaching there, and she's also interested, in learning a little more about on the intermediate and developing athletes. Right, says we want to get these
Yeah. So
guys. Then we want to get these guys a
so
little
when you
more
say
some advanced training.
you couldn't. So when you say you couldn't find it anywhere, there's an intermediate clinic happening on the February 28th, March 1st weekend.
Oh,
Are
geez.
you aware of this?
Yeah, we were.
All these hidden
We're
secrets.
supposed-
So it is published somewhere, probably in
We're
NCCP.
supposed to be on an email list.
But
Okay, I'll have to look.
yeah, so I'll reach
Yeah.
out. I'll reach out to see if there's room. Some of these
Okay.
tend to be quickly booked, but I'll reach out and see if there's room.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a lot of people interested in doing it, right? So
Yeah, we do run intermediate clinics. They're
Okay.
less common. There's probably maybe 2 a year. I think there was one that was run in the August timeframe last year at Caledon, but they're posted usually at the on the NCCP site. You have to log into the locker and search through the calendar and
okay,
find them there.
I gotta log into
Yeah,
my
we
locker
definitely
more
need
often
to
then.
improve communication. We definitely need to improve communication. Are you the site coordinator for your club?
Yes, yeah,
Or
yes,
you're the contact. So that's something
yes,
that
I
maybe
am.
we
Yeah,
could figure out is email all the clubs and say, hey, there's a coaching clinic or a judging clinic near you.
yeah.
But yeah, those do happen, and it's definitely worth doing. The intermediate is great. It's also worth mentoring with a coach, depending on what your interest is. The NCCP has a mentor coach program, which I looked at, and I was about 2 years or 3 years ago, I had a visual disability or visual impairment, and I had to switch from shooting. All my bows are right-handed bows, and I had to, unfortunately, it was my right eye, and so I had to deal with the fact that either I had to give up archery soon because I might go blind in that eye, or I can teach myself with the one student bow that I had that was lefty. I can shoot that and see how it works and see how well I can shoot. And so I decided to do that. And I think I did about 15 sessions and I could equal my score. So God was telling me something. So I switched to you.
It's very impressive.
Very.
Needs must, right? Desperation. Where was I going with this? We were talking about
You switched from a righty to a
Coaching.
lefty.
yeah,
And the
I switched-
coaching mentorship.
We're talking about coaching. Yeah. Yeah. So during that period, I realized, okay, actually during that period, the CNIB reached out to me and said, because I was head coach, they said we have a visually impaired archer or athlete that would like to learn archery. And so I said, well, I need a couple of weeks to figure out how this is going to work. Because when I talked to them, it was like, no, she's got no vision. Right. So I had to figure out, okay, let's go figure out how this works. As I was not educated on para in any way, shape, or form. And especially with no vision, very little visual, if any, what do you do? And so I researched it and built the adaptive rig that they use for visually impaired archers, which essentially is a tripod with the sight on the tripod, and you stick your hand out, and the sight touches between your knuckles, and that's how you know where to hold the bow. And then you can raise it up, down, left, or right, and they just shoot normally. Sounds simple enough. but nobody had one of these things, and so I had to build it from scratch. And of course, I was trying to do it without buying anything too expensive. So I ended up using a $250 Surlock sight bar that I got from Crispin, and I slapped on some other thing for the sight. I managed to build this $350 rig and I took it out to test. I think nobody believed that this would work. So I had Tony put a blindfold on me, and I took 3 shots and bullseye at 10 meters. And I was like, wow, okay, this actually really works. And so I had something that now the archer could come out, and she loved it. She tried it. She loved it. So anyways, long story short, I did wheelchair archers. I did a number of visually impaired archers. I talked Hard House in Toronto into building an adaptive rig because they lived, the archer, one of the blind archers lived closer to them, and so we did lessons there. And then in this mentor program, I decided I better learn how to, what are the other aspects, and I mentored for a year with Gwen Binsfeld, who's a para coach in I believe alpine skiing, and I went to the para sports conference that was in Toronto 2 or 3 years ago, and it was eye-opening, absolutely eye-opening to hear from these athletes. Right, there was one kid. He was 8 years old, and he had lost, like in my right eye, I've lost central vision. I can see everything, but very annoying. You look at the target, I can't see the yellow. So I've lost central vision. He lost central vision at 8 years old. And what did he do?
Jeez.
He became a speed skier. He was flying off these hills. He can't see ahead, but he can see the periphery. So he's watching the fences, and he's got a guide. But when you see the videos, the guide can't keep up with him, right? So he's now in his 20s. But man, I was like, okay, I'm not complaining about anything now. If he can do that, I can shoot with my left eye.
I can shoot
right?
left-handed.
Yeah.
And
That
these
would be
guys had
insane.
it's insane. That one of them had from the knee a prosthetic leg, and from the knee to the ankle, I think it was $100,000. The ankle and the foot, which is now apparently they've got some new technology in the ankle and the foot can move much better and can adapt much better. So that's another $120,000 or something. And he's a speed skier with a prosthetic leg. So yeah, you the folks you meet, if that conference ever comes back, like I said, a whole lot more people have to it because I learned a lot as a coach, as a human being, as a father, you learn a lot. And so so one of the grants we did, and it's funny, this has actually been done by 2 17-year-olds who wanted to do something for the community. They're archers, they're competitive athletes, but they wanted to give something back in return. And so they approached me and said, can we build an adaptive rig? We built an adaptive rig, and they applied for an adaptive archery grant to expand programs and provide essentially archery experience for people with a disability, anyone with a disability. And we had the first session in February, where we partnered with Community Living Dufferin, and they brought out a couple of folks, and it went well. They enjoyed themselves. And we're going to do some more of that because, 1 in 4 people in Ontario is living with a disability, and that's pretty stunning, right? You think you're the only one. I'm not. It's not prosthetic leg necessarily. It may just be visual disability like I have, but it's something you don't see, and people don't talk about it. Whether it's hearing loss or visual impairment, people don't necessarily talk about it. But it's 1 in 4, and it's growing. And so, archery clubs and sports clubs and all institutions are going to have to be able to handle that aspect of society and do it in an inclusive way. So we're looking, as part of that grant, to create more space and we've got really heavy tables in the indoor range. We can't create more space, for example, if we have 5 to 6 wheelchairs. So having portable tables that we can fold and put away to make more space is kind of important. Making the range doors accessible. The outer doors are accessible, the washrooms are accessible, but the range doors are not. So some of those things. So yeah, there's a lot to coaching.
Yeah, we haven't even really touched about being the president of Archery Ontario. My goodness, you sound like a busy guy there, Mark. Holy mackerel!
Yeah.
So
I
just a little bit about Archery Ontario. I guess what do you want people to understand about where the I know you're interim president. Your term's up in October. If you get voted back in, let's say you do go vote, you get voted back in. Where do you want to take the organization, or where do you think the organization's headed in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that I kind of really didn't deliberately think through or understand is how these provincial sports organizations work, and each sports organization um, has a responsibility to meet what's called the sport eligibility criteria, and when they do, as we do and have been for 100 years, the province has basically granted us um, the mandate to govern the sport of archery in Ontario. And it's literally a grant of a right. So we govern the sport of archery in Ontario, and it means that we're responsible. So we have to meet these criteria. So we got to keep doing all those good things that we're doing. We got to have all the policies in place for safe sport and inclusivity and all that stuff. But we also have to we're responsible for developing the officials, right? That means the judges, the coaches, the directors of shooting. We need to manage the programs and funding for the junior athletes that are part of Sport Ontario's program, the athlete assistance program, and we have to look at all of the different um, disciplines, not just target archery, which is most common for tournaments, but we have to look at compound, we have to look at barebow, we have to look at all of the different folks, the longbow and traditional and all of that. And so it's a bit different than the club level where you focus on this and that. You have to think about a much larger organization, and you have to have, I will say, effective communication in place. So today, I think we're suffering from a lack of communication to coaches, to judges, to members. We get into a lot of, I didn't know about this, just like you said, you didn't know that there's a level 2 coaching clinic. And it's because the channels of communication are either broken or don't exist. And so a lot of that is what has to be fixed in going forward. I think we need to figure out how to make tournaments bigger and grow capacity. I think, traditionally that hasn't been the role at Archery Ontario. We award the tournaments to different clubs and we kind of let them do it. But if we're going to have bigger tournaments, we can't expect that a club will build for peak tournament capacity. And when I look at what it takes to organize a large tournament like Canada Cup East, the biggest expense is really the target butts. And so we need to figure out how to become the strategic target butt reserve for the province, if you will. Because there's no chance of growing target capacity or tournament capacity if we don't. Whether that's 3D or whether that's field, like we need to be able to help clubs with that expense. And so that's going to be problematic. It's going to be controversial. Everybody's going to want their piece of it, but you know what?
Yeah.
It has to get done. And I think the one program that we already did this year was the gender equity playbook that we worked with women in sport to build, to go through our current existence and see where we have and don't have gender equity. We've got some good things going, but we also need to figure out how to retain and support females and youths as they transition into more sophisticated tournaments. Right? We tend to have a lot of females in the youth categories. I think we're at 65%, but as they get older, they drop out. It's whether it's because of other factors or whether it's because there's not enough support for them. We have to figure that kind of stuff out. So that's going to be a focus of our gender equity. So yeah, communication. Making sure that we listen to everybody and can communicate with everybody. I'd like to get a monthly newsletter out. That's something that people have been asking. And growing tournaments is something that we'd like to see. We got surprising feedback in my view, from some of the competitive coaches, because we got some of them together to talk, and they wanted to actually bring back an Ontario tournament that used to exist called the Spring Classic, and that's something that seems to have strong support. And it's local. It's Ontario. It started in Ontario. I know that the Canada Cup East and West were trying to be built on that, but they're already maxed out, and a lot of the competitive youth archers can't even get into those tournaments now. It's either too expensive or it's already full. And I know because even the one we organized, we thought 120 would be fine, and we sold out in 3 weeks, 3 months before the tournament was due to be held, and some of the senior archers couldn't even get in. The national team archers couldn't get in, so we had to expand capacity to 150. So
yeah, it's
so yeah, tournament capacity is something we need to do, but there's also a limited number of weekends in the summer, so we got to figure out what to do.
yeah. It's a good and a bad problem, and so not a lot of people know this, but I do transit planning for a living. So when we have a lot of ridership and we don't have enough buses, we always call it a good problem, and then it's until customers start complaining, then it's a bad problem. So so we kind of have this very similar situation here where we have we have all the athletes now. It's just the capacity to be able to service those athletes. It's becoming a problem. I know even for us, like we had to limit our tournaments to 100 people because the parking, we just don't have the parking to facilitate it. Like Justin, myself, and a few other gentlemen are going to go and do some cutting this year, and hopefully we can get ourselves a little more parking, but like that might get us maybe 20 more spaces if we're lucky. And I received a lot of complaints about having pre-registration and limiting the numbers, and it's like, guys, I can't have you parking on the road and getting hit by a car. Like I would just quit archery. I'd be devastated, right? If an athlete came to participate at our tournament and they got hurt, right? It's that's just at a club level, so I can't imagine a lot of the issues you guys are getting at the provincial level. So
well, the nationals are going to be interesting because the target championships, believe it or not, are going to be on the grass runway at Muskoka Airport.
Well, that's cool.
So we got 1,000 meters.
Oh, wow.
So one of the ideas, and I think that's mentioned in the press release about the special event, was let's do a distance challenge. You got a number of compound shooters, so we're looking for tall, burly, strong compound shooters and others as well, because we decided to open it up to bare bow and recurve as well. But we're going to do a distance challenge starting at 75 meters, going to 100, 150, 250, and the world record for compound is at 330 meters.
Wow.
To hit an 18-inch target.
To hit an 18-inch target.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's going to be an 18-inch balloon target. So it's been done in the U.S. at that distance. Well, that remains to be seen. Yeah. So far, ballistics says for the compound bow that we're using or we're hoping to use, it's a 15 to 17 incline that you're at.
Okay.
So it's doable. However, the arrow will disappear into the sky, and at its apex, we need to clear 25 meters of airspace.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting with that kind of ballistics.
Well, we got to you've got to have some drones on site or something to film all that.
Oh, you can't have drones. It's an airport.
Oh, it's an airport.
Can't have drones.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's an airport.
That's too bad.
We do have at that distance. It's a rifle shot, right? So the rifle cameras that you can place 300 meters downrange and can watch the target and relay live video back to your iPad so awesome. is what we use.
What about lighted knocks? So you could see them as they're.
We could, but remember this is target archery.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be rules. Like we did set a limit on the bow draw weight to 80 pounds.
Okay.
The guy who broke the record had a specially engineered Matthews bow that was 90 pounds. And we're trying to keep it commercially available. Your bow has to be commercially available. They can't be
Wasn't that
special
the Dude
bow, 'cause
Perfect
that's unfair
guys?
advantage.
That was Tyler from Dude Perfect that broke that
Yeah,
record.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I remember
Yeah. So
watching
we'll
that
see.
video.
Technology's advanced a little bit now, and you got the arrow guy from Africa working on here with a few people. So
I wonder if the bow shop in Waterloo will have the new Hoyt Beast or the whatever the other one's called. Those are both
The
90-pound
AX90.
bows. They'd both be commercially available.
yep. Yeah,
Maybe
James
they could
is
lend us one.
aware of this event, and he's
Okay,
I think he's planning to sponsor a team or a couple of people. So we'll
that's
see
so
who shows
awesome.
up.
Yeah,
But it'll be a fun event for this year anyway.
and
I just
I know
want to.
you're working with a pretty big dude to make the shot. So I can't remember. I don't
Yes,
remember the gentleman's name.
Steve is six
Steve.
foot
Yeah.
six, and he's got a 75-pound bow and the Atlas,
Wow,
and we'll see how far that goes. We're waiting for the arrows,
that's so
and
awesome.
we'll see. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
That sounds
It's
like
probably also going to
that
be one
sounds
of
like a
the
blast.
bigger. Yeah, it's probably going to be one of the bigger target tournaments. I think we're looking at the challenge. Is in planning things this big is that they look at last year. Everybody looks at last year, and last year it was held in Lac La Biche, right? Which is harder to get to. When you do something like this within a couple hours driving of the GTA, you just don't know who's gonna come. So we're thinking we're only gonna have 220, I think is the number.
It's a
Who
lot of
knows?
people.
That is a lot of people.
I think there's that many, or there's about 200 for the 3D. So,
Yeah,
but
Yeah,
that
well,
one's 4 days, I guess.
yeah, and Gord puts on a good event. That course he's got at AIM. I know he's probably changed it now since I've been there. It's 2023. I think he did provincials. I was there for that, and it's such an awesome course. It's basically a tack course. It's very challenging, very challenging. Like good on
Yeah,
him that he
no, it's
keeps it
gonna be.
going. Good on
Yeah,
him.
so we're excited.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, it's been 10 years since the Nationals came to Ontario, and so we intend to put on a good show and good tournament and be good hosts and pass it on to the next province. So.
Awesome.
yeah, I know I'll be there. Give it a try.
Yeah, well, you might be one of the Royal City sponsored guys if you shoot well enough. So we're sponsoring.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think we're going
see.
to try to sponsor three or four athletes to go. One of them's actually going to be a target shooter, and we're going to have maybe a couple of 3D guys as well. So we're working with Stephanie for the target shooter. We got to figure out how to sort of get not funding, usually self fund, right? We do 50-50 draws and all that sort of thing. And last year we
Right.
sent Luis. I
Yep.
can never say his last name wrong. Luis is one of is yeah, if he's listening, he's a sweetheart. He's got to be one of the sweetest people I've ever met in archery. But we sent him to nationals last year in Alberta. We were able to raise $2,000 to send him there, and he was so grateful. He shot pretty well, but when he came back, like he was just so grateful that we were able to send him, and we were happy to do it. Just given his heart, what he does for the club, he always talks well of us, and so it was something special. It was great. It's nice to be able to do that with athletes. It's kind of going back to your story with a gentleman who wanted to go elk hunting in 8 weeks, and he writes you, I got my elk, and you feel like you've contributed something great, right? So I think that's kind of
Yeah, I
what
think.
it's all about, this sport and what we're doing here. So as coaches, as club owners, I think that's really, maybe it's not what everyone's doing, but I think it's, for me anyways, that's kind of how I think it should be done. Like we're all volunteers, right? You're a volunteer, she's a volunteer, Justin's a volunteer. I think anyways, where I'm going with that, I'm
Yeah,
not sure, but
definitely one of the one of the things that I would like to be able to do and help clubs do this is figure out how we broaden and deepen other funding sources. Like it's very clear that the government has limited funding to spend on each sport, and we have to get better at finding sources of funding in the community. Club is a great place to start, but community is another. Figuring out and going to businesses in the community as well, and we got to figure out how we can get the tools and the introductions and the um, the sponsors so that we're not so dependent on government funding. That's something that, again, it's hard to do, but we're gonna do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even have to ask any of these questions, and they all were kind of you've kind of taken us where I wanted to kind of go with learning about Archery Ontario and the sort of the ins and outs. I know, sometimes from the outside looking in, it's hard to see what's going on there, and I don't want to make this sound offensive, because I always get asked that question, well, if I join Archery Ontario, what's it going to do for me? And I'm like, well, I don't know, it's the exact right attitude to have with things, but I get it from your perspective, from people's perspective, right? They're spending money, they want to know where their money goes and what it's going to do for them, right? So, I don't want to sound nasty or rude, but to kind of pose that question to you, so that when people do ask me, I can kind of give them an answer.
Yeah, so I think the answer has been challenging because we haven't been communicating enough. Communicating about what we do, communicating about the teams that are going to Alberta as they did for the Rocky Mountain Classic. So we need to also start the conversation around insurance, because that's becoming a challenge for everybody. So one of the things that Ontario has to figure out is, are we going to maintain our existing, because we have an Ontario insurance policy. However, Archery Canada is pushing to raise fees for their program, because the national sport organization takes a certain amount out of every membership. So the way the sports works is, in other sports, you have to become a member of the National Association and the Provincial Association in order to do the sport. And if you don't have insurance. And in our business, especially with archery, we can't afford to have folks without insurance. So that's one of the difficult things that's going to happen is, and I don't think we want to just leave archers without insurance, but that's kind of where we're headed, because the cost of insurance is rising, and somebody has to. It's user pays. So if you don't have insurance, a club may not want you, and so either you belong to Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters and you have insurance through them, or you belong to Archery Ontario / Archery Canada and you have insurance through them. But the first and foremost thing today is getting insurance, because when you join a club, you don't think about it. And everybody assumes that there's going to be insurance, but at the moment, it's Archery Canada, Archery Ontario paying for that insurance, and that's an unsustainable path, because insurance is rising. So we're trying to figure out what the right number is, and trying to figure out how do we do this fairly so that the clubs can predictably manage their perspective. But the one thing you'll start with is, you get insurance, liability insurance, which helps keep you safe. You certainly don't want to be without insurance. And then it's really about the community of coaches and judges and tournaments. And if you don't shoot in tournaments, even if you're just recreational, you can still take advantage of coaching. It's the community of clubs that share their facilities, and that the goal is to support each other as we grow as archers. So for us, this is the association that you belong to get all those things. But again, it starts with communication, and I think I would say that we've not met the standard of communication that I would like to see and that most of us expect. So it starts there. So you'll be seeing more of that.
Awesome. All right. So enough about this. Enough this president talk. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. Are you still a bow hunter, Mark?
Well, since my eye dominance, my right arm can do 60 pounds. My left arm is kind of stuck at 42, 43. So I haven't been shooting lately, but I have been training others to shoot. So I shoot through them now, in some way, shape, or form. But no, I haven't been hunting in the last year and a half. Not
so
let's say you get
let's say you get your arm and your left-handed shooting up to par. What would be your dream hunt?
I think my goal is really just to get back into turkey and deer, and I think so what happened, one of the weird things about archery is that in using my right eye, because I can still use my right eye to shoot. So the traditional thing, if you don't know, for a left eye dominant shooter is if you use a right hand bow, you're going to aim about 3 to 4 feet to the right, probably lower, and you're going to hit the target that's in front of you. And so I did a bunch of research on that, and I found exactly where the spot was, and I measured the distance on my sight. So I'm using my left eye, no peep. I'm using my left eye on the sight. So if I move the sight 2.5 inches to the left, in other words, I extend that rod 2.5 inches, I can look at the target, I can shoot right-handed, and I can use my left eye, and I'll hit it. And so I tested that theory out about 2 months ago, and it works.
Right on.
And so now I can put 3 arrows in. So I would probably hunt with my right-handed bow, because my right arm is still able to do 50, 60 pounds.
Right on.
And I just need to get good enough to do that and consistent enough, and then I would do that. Going the other way will take much longer, because you got to build up your left arm. My right arm is higher quality of life, much better strength. I may as well take advantage of technology. So we'll see. The funny part is for somebody who has central vision loss, is that the peep still comes to my right eye, right, on a right-handed bow. So if I look straight through the peep, I can't see the target. But if I look to the right of the peep, I can see the target. And so I have not perfected this technique yet, but I could probably still use the peep, is what I'm saying. Weird though that sounds. I usually tell the story about the 2012 Olympic shooter who, he's legally blind. He was legally blind, and he broke the world record at the 2012 Olympics and won the team gold with Korea. But he's legally blind. His vision is 620. He cannot read a newspaper, but he can see.
Okay.
At 70 meters, he can see shades, and they basically tell him, you're 9 o'clock in the red, and he can adjust his bow, or he could adjust his bow. So I always tell the story that you don't need to see to do archery. But now I'm living it.
There you go. Actually,
there you go.
After the show, I'd like to talk to you about that. There's a gentleman that we have at the club. Anyway, so I don't want to get too personal, but
same thought.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, right on. It's very cool. Actually, it's not working where I was expecting the show to go. This is I'm kind of at a loss here for a lot of the questions. You kind of answered everything I wanted to ask, and we got a lot more than I expected, for sure. This is really good, Mark. I really enjoyed getting to know you and talking to you. It's I feel better about being a member of Marches of Caledon too now. So and I'm also a member of Archery Ontario. So yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. Very good. Very good. Yeah. So
I'll give you one more.
Sure.
Sorry, I'll give you one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anecdote that again unexpectedly happened to me, because I was the coach who started the youth group, and a lot of the younger kids kind of came out during the pandemic. The parents brought them out and said, you know what, I know your group classes are for 12 years old and on, and what about something younger? And so we opened our archery experience up after I tested some bows for younger kids, because if you can't pull back a 10-pound recurve, there's nothing that most clubs will have that they're usable. So I tested out some other bows that were rated at lighter, the Bear Scout bow, for example, and we opened it up to 8 years old and up, and it got pretty popular. They come out, especially about 9-year-olds. Eight might be a little young if you're light, if you're petite, but if you're 9, 10, that's the age that a lot of archers start. And what I had come in that age range of 9 to 12, 13 were parents with kids who were ADHD or on the ADHD spectrum or autistic. But, being obviously a little shy about this, they didn't tell you that. You get a kid come for archery and you just think he was chatty or he was focused. And so I started to have these kids come back, and they liked my stories about Africa. So they would come back and chat about that. How many predators there were in Africa, and what could you hunt that could hunt you back? So they liked those stories. But what I found was doing that is that in the doctors are actually saying that archery is therapy for autistic kids. And there was an archery. I don't know if they're still around. There was an archery place in East Toronto that actually was doing this. They would have autistic adults and youths do archery. And I saw it in spades because the confidence, the ability to focus, their concentration, it was unimaginable in 6 months what I saw. Right. And it really kind of reinforced the fact that, yeah, the practice of doing the repetition and a routine thing and staying focused. And many of these folks are not social butterflies. They're uncomfortable with two people. But once they get into a situation where they like what they're doing, just like anybody else, they chat and they can start to talk to people and they gain confidence. And I think this one kid had, I told him we can't go out shoot. He wanted to go shoot the 3D. And I said, well, we can't go out until you're accurate enough. And so we moved him onto a compound bow. He got more accurate. And when he got down to shooting 3 arrows from 18 meters in just the yellow and red, he did that one day and we went out. And literally his parents were FaceTiming each other because they could not believe what was happening. But this kid was out there shooting 3D targets. And they enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. We didn't lose a single arrow. He put his entire,
That's awesome.
shooting. He was at a distance of 20 meters. So there are many different aspects of this that are inclusive and can be used. You'll find out that there's aspects to this that are rewarding to you, to the community, are inclusive to the community, and are rewarding to you as a coach. So I just kind of wanted to share that one.
Yeah, and that actually is it's actually a great way to end this one. It's I say a lot about this sport, how much it's given me, and I know it's a good. I hate to say it's a good sales pitch, but it really is a good sales pitch. Like this there's so much you can learn from this sport, whether it's hunting, target, what have you. It does offer a lot. So, but on that note, thanks for coming out, Mark. We really appreciate it. And that was a letdown. Thank you, guys.
See you.
Thanks. Bye.
I'm Justin Harrison. You can find me on Instagram at Justy_785 or on Facebook. Just look up Justin Harrison.
I'm Misha Corso. You can find me on Instagram at Misha Corso. And if you're looking for some great bow hunting and sport shooting merch, look up Stray Sons Archery on Instagram. The link to our Shopify is in our bio.
I'm Chris LaFleur. If you want to find us, the show is Letdown Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. And on Instagram and Facebook, you can find us at the Letdown Podcast. Catch you next time. This was The Letdown. Thank you for listening. This was The Letdown.